Hey guys, I am setting up for a live video today. I'm going to go on around 2. It's 1:30 now, on both TikTok and YouTube Live. If you hear any weird noises in the background, it's actually my coffee maker. I set myself up to refill my iced coffee cup and realized that there wasn't any more to refill it with. So that was a disaster and quickly needed to be remedied. So I have, everything's in front of me here. I have my eyeliners and concealers and foundations and powders, but I just wanted to say I know I've been having a really difficult emotional time, regardless of the topic, whether it's about health and wellness, whether it's about makeup, whether it's about just other things going on in my life. All of my videos are unfortunately circling back to mental health, whether I want them to or not. And it is something that I would like to move away from, but it is really difficult while you're in it. So I just wanted to say to everyone else who might be dealing with something similar, you're not alone. To have the bravery to confront your mental health and never mind to take it on publicly like I have. I've personally found that really rewarding and helpful for me to talk things out, even if it's just me, talking to you guys and having comments back and forth, or purely sometimes just hearing the sound of your own voice helps. And I know that different people take that different ways, but I personally feel like it's whatever works for you, whatever works for the individual, like whatever gets you through the night is really important and critical to be able to, one, find that outlet, and two, to allow yourself permission to have that and not rob yourself of it and not be like, oh, I didn't earn that today, or oh, I didn't get my stuff done that I needed to do before this. Like, whatever order you need to do your tasks in, like, don't withhold the joy from yourself. It's hard to make phone calls to providers. Like, I'm hoping that if you haven't seen the most recent John Oliver, where he talks about what it's like to, like, how limited, one, how difficult it is to get in front of a medical professional that's appropriate, and two, if you do want a female therapist or a therapist of a different background, that, like, you might not be able, you're on a much shorter wait list, and that insurances add a whole different element to it, that insurances don't really incentivize providers to work with them. And even with every step that I've taken, it's really difficult to look your provider in the face, or if you're doing telehealth, just to talk to them and say, it's, yeah, I understand how limited things are, and then they start a dialogue with you about, oh yeah, it's, thank you for being understanding, because it is, so many people don't, they're so frustrated that they don't know how to, they can't receive that information with any kind of grace. It's, you're hearing from your provider that the specific type of treatment that you need is not available in your area, or that there's only one or two professionals who provide it, or that there, is just such a stigma around your illness that so few people will even accept you into their practice because they're exhausted with what they believe. You know, there's a stereotype of one type of patient or another, which, I don't know, it feels weird. Like, you expect that from a bartender or sales clerk to be like, no, I'm not going to serve this person because they've made me uncomfortable, but you don't expect that from your doctor, to hear that from, like, oh, we don't serve, I don't provide treatment for this type of person. It's really difficult to combat a stigma that was in place before you were even thought of, before you were even in existence, you know. Um, and for me, I've found that because I am still very much in the throes of, you know, unpacking my CPTSD, which was the root cause of borderline for me, and borderline and my rigidity and my inability to accept different things um, that aren't black and white or ones and zeros. And, you know, I can't believe the information told to me as an absolute truth, that I've really based what would have been left of myself around concrete information that I believed to be concrete at the time. Once you start, for me, playing Jenga with that, and you're taking out, like, oh, you know, a decade later, like, yeah, that piece of information I told you, I candy coded that and that wasn't true, or oh, this wasn't true, or oh, that's just something I said to get you to stop asking questions, or, you know, any variation of that for me is, I have a really difficult time with that. As you may know, I separated myself from, well, I am separated from the Toy Vault company I was working for. There we go, that's my coffee maker beeping. And as much as I love and miss my friends that I made, like, it really was a positive work environment, and it was something that I think I really needed to get back to work after the pandemic, and a place where I could wear sweatpants to work or wear anything I felt like, and also have the benefit of being around toys all day and video games and things that I found to be specially important or special interests, and to be able to talk about that with, you know, some of the adults and children and parents buying stuff for whomever. I think it was exactly what I needed, but the reason that I brought that up is, like, that was a really minor instance of, okay, you know, unfortunately, you know, because of upper management and a disagreement, like, we can't keep you on, but you can finish out the day. And I was like, okay, well, great. Like, you know, I know a lot of people might not choose that, but I would like to be able to finish out the day and say goodbye to my coworkers, and to, you know, keep some of my, in my head, what would have been, like, my dignity intact, and to just, like, have the opportunity to have a final lap. Um, and it's not what should have been a minor thing of, you know, you can finish this out, but you don't have to, you know, don't feel obligated. And then within the span of a few minutes was actually, you know, I talked to whoever and they said you can't stay the day. So it was kind of like, for me, the ability to let go of, like, well, why would you have even said that if it wasn't a possibility? Like, it feels callous and it feels upsetting, and, like, one, I'm already uprooted, so to further, like, you just gave me a choice and I chose one thing, and then to within the span of like minutes, like the fact that I can't believe what I was told a minute ago was really difficult for me to work through, um, to say the least. Like, I went home not mad at that, not mad at upper management, but I went home livid that I couldn't, one, like, I was basically didn't get to say goodbye to anybody, and not only that, but that none of my coworkers thought to say goodbye to me on the way out. And they might have known what was going on, might not have, but it's, the fact that they didn't say, like, oh, I'm really sorry, we're gonna miss you. Like, there was no text, there was no. It's hard to, for me, build like a really close relationship with people at a job that I like over the course of 8 months, where I feel like I'm rebuilding myself after so much, and to create what I felt was a safe space within my work space with my work friends, um, to have it violently like ripped from underneath me, and to have the call from upper management being made by, to let me go by somebody who never met me, never bothered to say hello to me, never, like, I don't appreciate passive aggression. It's not something I tolerate well. So there are times with retail where it's like, oh, just so everyone's aware, or just so, you know, not sure who did it, but blank. Like, that's a really difficult set of sentences that will automatically put my, like, dinosaur frills up to be like, well, why would you bring it? Like, not sure who did it, but blank. Like, why can't it just be like, so everyone's aware this is what is going on, or so everybody's aware this is what I did, like, or some sort of post, or, it's just, it doesn't have to be accusatory, like, I don't know who did it, but blank leaves so much wiggle room to be like, the phrasing is automatically uncomfortable, whereas it could have been, you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who put something in the wrong spot, or who helped a customer who left the bad review, or it would be up to, I'm getting off topic, but like, I do not handle stuff like that gracefully. I don't handle change of any kind well. And like, outside of an emergency situation I need to quickly escape from, I don't handle change well, unless I'm the one creating it, or it's my choice to do something. Like, I don't. Um, another example of that is, okay, I'm gonna stay X amount of days somewhere. I'm gonna stay with a friend for a week or 2 weeks or whatever amount of time, several days at their house, and this is what is going to go on. So I bring that amount of stuff, and you get settled in, and you're hanging out with somebody, and you're spending time with them, and then within the span of like a couple of hours, it's, oh, I just took a phone call and I need to bring you home, or I need to make sure you have a car to get into because whatever. And there's been so there's been so much of that in my life where I get uprooted quickly, or I need to leave somewhere quickly and I leave stuff behind, like whether it's, you know, toothbrushes and stuff. Like I have, like, I kid you not, like 9 pairs of tweezers and 4 different toothbrushes, one that I keep in my makeup bag. Um, there was a point in my life where, like, I was leaving, like, one lipstick at work and a makeup bag at what would have, you know, when it was my mom's house, like, I would leave an overnight bag, and creating, like, these little hideaways of stuff so that I would have anything I needed wherever I needed it. And then it's stuff that unfortunately, like, you end up having a falling out with people and you lose stuff, like stuff that's really important to me. Like, I don't, there's a lot of my favorite things that, you know, arguably my most expensive purchase or my most expensive thing that I can't find, don't know where it is I had to buy myself a new digital camera because I have a camera that is at, I believe, somewhere in Rhode Island, because it's the one place I can't check, because I'm no longer on good terms with that person. That's the only place that I know for a fact that I brought it last, and I don't have the bandwidth, I don't have it in me to create a dialogue with someone who hasn't, you know, doesn't have it in their wheelhouse. You know, they haven't reached out to me in over a year, year and a half. So it's hard because I would not want that first piece of dialogue to be accusatory. There's favorite shirts and favorite hoodies and favorite, you know, different things that I know I'm missing, like a necklace that's really important to me that's at somebody's house or might have gone in the trash or God knows what. Like, I lost my first Game Boy. This is going back to high school or middle school, like, because I know it was at one of 2 friends' houses, and both of those people just started avoiding me, like, really, what I felt was quickly, what might have been building up in their heads for a while. Um, I don't know for sure where I fit on the autism spectrum, but I do know that I have, like, a severely hard time with change. I know that I expect rigidity. I think that a big part of that is what I would categorize as BPD, but I think that there's enough signs that I can also point to as potentially autistic traits, and I'm learning that because I'm an old people baby. Like, my dad was born in 1948 and my mom was born in 1950. So as a millennial who has, you know, her whole life come to grips with having an abnormal upbringing, um, it's, there are other people's reports that I've been experiencing through either TikTok or something like that where, you know, other people are saying, like, if you need to, if you're gonna pick me up, like, you can't not pick me up. Or if you're gonna be late, like, you need to let me know well in advance. And that's, like, as a little kid, like, that's one of the first signs of autism. Like, you can't cope with rapidly changing time frames. Um, and even as an adult, like, I've really struggled with, like, hey, I'm gonna pick you up for breakfast, or oh, I'm gonna pick you up at X time, where I will be ready and prepared to immediately, within, everything in my power, to be ready at that time, and then to be waiting for an hour and a half or waiting over a day for somebody to respond and say, oh, something came up. And it's like, well, if something came up, you should have told me, as soon as you knew, and to not leave me waiting. Um, like, to deliberately avoid me is to cause so many more and infinite problems for me. And I know that it causes outbursts in me towards other people, because I can smell when something's wrong. I can smell when people's behaviors are changing, and to not know why, or to I have what some people would categorize as like a confrontational tendency to say, hey, like, what's wrong, or what's going on, or, if I know that potentially something I said was upsetting, or something I did was upsetting, like, I need to not hear, like, oh yeah, no, like, don't worry about it, or we'll talk about it. Like, even we'll talk about it later is fine, but it's not ideal. Um, but the worst thing you can possibly do to me is say, like, no, like, you're fine, or whatever, and, like, everything's okay, when I know that it's not. Um, and I'm very much in the wheelhouse of, like, or of the belief that I don't understand how, like, autism or anything else, in that line of asking for clarity, or asking for directness, or asking for whatever, I don't understand how that's the outlier, because it takes so much to speak up. It takes a lot of courage to recognize, a lot of time and training and therapy to realize, like, what the problem is and what your tendencies are, um, and then to deal with the general public who think, like, going to therapy is just for, some people. Like, when I was talking about going to therapy, or talking about, like, yeah, and you should go to therapy too, mom, and my mom was like, well, I don't even know what I would talk about. And it's like, how about, any of the things that you call me 4 times a day about, and, anything, literally anything. Like, it's hard to have a conversation with somebody who's like, oh yeah, I'm really proud of you for going to therapy, or finishing therapy, or whatever, and then to turn around and be like, yeah, it's good, and I think that everybody should go, and maybe, if you want a referral or whatever, if you want somebody's details, I can give them to you, and they're automatically, oh no, no, like, no, I don't need that. And it's like, well, or like, the most graceful answer I can attribute to my friend, I don't know that she would want me to say her name on here, but to a remarkably close and dear friend of mine, she was like, I know that I need therapy, I know that I need to start addressing different issues, but I feel like it's going to be too steep of a spiral for me right now, and, within the next 6 months or whatever, like, if I can just delay it this little bit, because I haven't had a backfire or a severe burnout, you know, up until this point. If I can just give myself 6 months and then I can complete what I'm working on, get through school or get through finals week, like do what I need to do, and then I want to take the time to dedicate it to myself, and like I would be doing myself a disservice to start now. And that's the kind of stuff that like that's you can't applaud somebody enough for. Like even that requires so much self-recognition and self organization, you know, to say, you know, this, I'm aware of my timeline, I'm aware of my capabilities, I cannot unpack these things and still function well. Like, I think that that's more, like, so much more credit is due, um, because I know people who are burning out at 40 and 50 and facing a lot of the same questions that I face on a daily basis. Um, because it is frustrating to, you know, again, just to circle back to the John Oliver special, it's like people, there aren't enough clinicians, there aren't enough prescribers, there aren't enough people who do diagnostic testing because not everybody thinks that, you know, certain things about testing. So people are triaging with these apps like Wobot or Calm or these different things. So as you can see, I'm back after my live video. I just wanted to come back here and kind of revisit my thoughts. I had hoped that I would get some stuff out of my system before I took it to my makeup video, and I think it was a little bit successful. I tried really hard to get some of the heavier stuff off of my mind before I brought it into a makeup-centric space, which is, like I've said, I think that it's very, very difficult when you are in the middle of something and when all you can really focus on is your own mental health. Um, you know, it's hard to realize like that is the underlying fundamental thing that you need to talk about and address so that you can move forward through and past it. And that not all people are interested in going that deep within themselves. Not all people have the bandwidth to do that. Even if they do want to, they don't really know how, and they don't really have the energy to get educated as early as, you know, it could be that you plant a seed for somebody else to revisit when they get there. Like eventually they're going to be in a confusing space that they're going to revisit the seed that you planted in their brain from ages ago, and then they're going to go down their own Google hole. So it is hard. I know I've said hard like 4 times. I think I'm trying to figure out a synonym that's going to make sense. Or you could turn it into a drinking game if that's what you're up to. Once you've worked for yourself, and obviously I've tried that a couple different times now. I've tried Etsy. My Etsy really hasn't gotten off the ground. I've tried, you know, in-person sales, renting tents to, you know, at fairs and stuff, craft fairs. I've tried partnering with people who had floor spaces because I do prefer in-person sales. Whenever I can coordinate that, I prefer it. I'm looking into one tent sale that I know somebody is going to that I might piggyback on or get a tent next to her. We'll see. Because I have so much inventory that photographing everything and uploading everything is just, it's challenging. I might make like I could spread out what I have for inventory and make a YouTube video, and then if anybody's interested in what I have, I think that would be a good way to showcase, and then I'm happy to ship it out individually. But Etsy itself takes such a large cut of everything. Um, they have the monthly fee. You have to keep each and every individual item, regardless of how big or small. Like you have to pay, I think it's like 20 cents per item, which can add up very quickly depending on how many listings you have. Um, I tried to skirt around a little bit by doing like mystery earring grab bag, but it's not everybody's interested in just blindly buying one thing or another without knowing exactly what it is. Um, so it's something that I'm still trying to navigate. Uh, just because I have so much beautiful inventory that's just sitting now that I don't have a space. Um, and it is just really like not, when you bring your spirituality and something that's so personal into transforming it into try and making a business model, and then you feel like you're trying to continue to educate yourself, continue to educate each other with the reality of like realizing people are going to start implementing your knowledge sometimes closer to your business model than you would like, or in a closer, you know, maybe not even in an intentional way, but like customers could go in their direction knowing that you're the person who taught them certain things is really, really difficult. Like it's great to see them succeed, but also like whether it's deliberate or not, like stealing customers or, I'm trying to think of a better word, but customers shifting from one store to another, one creator to another, it's hard to see that and not be disheartened. Um, Again, I didn't invent tarot, I didn't invent teaching about crystals, but watching people continue to host classes following some of the templates that I've created or continuing to host events based on ideas that I know I gave that like it's a fine line to walk where like I would love to see like the more people who are getting educated, the more people that are interested in crystals and tarot and those things and find them utilitarian and help them explore their emotional um, difficulties and find them satisfying and soothing and something that they want in their daily practice. Like at the end of the day, the more people who have that education, no matter how they get it, like I am fully in support of that. Um, it's just when it doesn't matter what it is, whenever you have too many people in a space that are all like elbow to elbow, um, you're gonna butt heads. And I found myself in one space was very like mean girls behavior, um, nasty and upsetting, and the professionalism really just was not there, and that's is what it is. And then in the other instance, partnering with someone who at the end of the day I had a lot of sympathy for and a lot of love for, um, empathy in the places that I could have it, and understanding, and then to feel like some of my words were weaponized or like that some of the behavior towards me was really classist. Like, I'm definitely like a make the most of what I have person. So it's hard to run into people who have really different ideas and don't communicate. Like I've said that in the first part of my video, like not communicating with me is really like I am so upfront. I prefer upfront whenever possible. Um, Even if it's something that I'm going to have a difficult time hearing, like I really do. I I don't know how asking for people to be upfront is perceived as abrasive. Um, it's I don't understand how asking for people to speak their mind is like and to be transparent is abnormal. I made a TikTok um, really recently for people who are my age who idolized, whether it was Lady Gaga or Katy Perry or whoever. Like, you're everybody who's influential in your life and the media you're consuming is you know be these strong independent female characters on silver screen and on TV. um, and you're like, yeah, that's what I want to implement, you know um, ingest and turn into myself, and make sure you send, you know, uplift women and be yourself in an unashamed way and be kind and, LGBTQ acceptance and, you know, females not bashing other females and, you know, the emphasis in the culture that I was consuming and all of the media I was consuming is that, at the end of the day, people like it was supposed to be in my head. It was, you know, pointing the finger at the other woman or demonizing people for certain beliefs. Like, that was so far back in time, and like things like that weren't going on anymore. And again, I only had like my mom and me as household, like that was it. So while I had other people in my life, like the day to day, you know, things I was running into, I only had my own experiences, and I'm losing a little bit of thought, but basically, like, the blaming of the other woman or like the hatred and demonizing of people who have different beliefs than you, and like, I really truly feel as if when I encountered, like, again, I think the I wasn't under the impression that those things weren't happening anywhere. I was under the impression that they were concepts that came from a lack of education, and that it was stuff that was not as common as it clearly is. Um, so, the be who you want, do what you want, live your life, get your education, get, you know, I think it's a mistake to focus on, like, my life was very centered on pushing yourself, like shoehorning yourself into a job at all costs. Um, and like making sure you worked, making sure you did whatever, made sure, you know, I started paying rent to my mom when I was 16. And really just from there, like the second I got my first job, I was made to pay rent at the house. And to have your feet hit the ground running like that, like the emphasis was get a job, get a job, get a job, and not so much here's your financial literacy, here's how to budget, here's how to save, here's how to, you know, practical things like balancing a checkbook, or more complicated things like how to create a portfolio for financial literacy. Um, there's such a, I think I would categorize that still as like a generational issue where my mom was very, you know, had a husband who dealt with the finances for a large part of, you know, her first marriage, um, and kind of learned stuff the hard way herself, but still maintained, you know, in raising me, it was like that's what the boys are for, that's what the men are for, like whenever possible, like that's what it's somebody else is supposed to do that. Um, and so she, you know, had her own process of doing things and learned her own methodologies the hard way, but I think that there could have been so much heartache on my end saved where, like, you know, hitting the ground running and wanting to get an apartment the earliest possible opportunity, um, feeling like I had to catch up to my relatives who are significantly older, uh, was just this overarching theme of my life. Like, I have felt, you know, from, I can't express how deeply I feel like from the age of like 10, 12, 14, like I feel like I've been made to, or like that's the example set was to catch up to, you know, these real people in my life that were, you know, whether it was my siblings or my cousins, like plenty of them were, continue to be 20 years older than me. Um, so it's that much more difficult when you are talking about like the flip side of the coin where my mom was so much older when she had me, and my siblings and my other family members were kind of intentional or not, like they were looking at me as kind of a nuisance or like an attachment to my mom, but not really paying attention to me specifically as an individual. It was, oh, isn't this new addition to the family so cute? Isn't, you know, but like the real feel of, you know, how I feel I was looked at was like just like, oh yeah, that's cute. Anyway, and then like going back to talking to my mom because like so I kind of learned in order to get the attention or love or anything that I wanted from my family members, I felt like I had to quickly understand, quickly educate myself on how to have these adult conversations and how to participate and nod my head and be like participatory in stuff that I don't think I should have, you know, had any type of I understand that there's only so much that can be done or can be said now, and I'm struggling with recognizing what those behaviors are that were abnormal or that shouldn't have been taking place, and the rage I feel about how emotionally stunted I am or have been, and potentially, the upsets, the ramification that has caused, um, where like I feel a lot of the emphasis of how I raised myself is, through movies and TV, and those are not always the best. I've really recently learned about something called main character syndrome, and I think that I am of the belief that everybody should want to be the main character in their lives. Um, but what you. I also categorize myself in the bubble of relationship anarchy. And if you'll just hang tight with me, like, I think that every relationship I've had in my life, whenever possible, is equally weighted. So, when, as much as, I have these really strong individual relationships with people, um, and I enjoy like one-on-one conversations so much more frequently than I do in a group setting. Like, I prefer one-on-ones or smaller groups, um, but because I like to pay individual attentions and be, what do you need, and what can I do to help you through XYZ, or oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened, or I'll sit with you and stay with you. Um, it's hard when you pour yourself into an individual who, like, in no matter what you think, like, you really can't see what their intentions are. Um, and for somebody like me who will, like, I want to believe apologies, and I want to believe in getting people the help they need regardless of if we're on good terms. Like, I really truly cotton candy shoehorn myself into these fantastical beliefs of, like, because it's what I want to hear, and I want to hear I'm sorry, and I want to hear I was wrong, and I want to hear, like, I learned this and I'll never do that again. And, I love a good growth and, forward momentum story. And I think that because that's what I look for so desperately within myself, like, I am all about, like, supporting other people. And when I don't have, just because I participate in what I believe to be, relationship anarchy, like, I expect to be treated equally as well. Like, I will hold all of my friends in the same regard, regardless of how long I've known them. Like, they are all equally important, and all, like, I raise people up to meet my really high bar, and they don't understand that. Like, I raise people up to where I've already categorized people that I know and have loved for years. So then to have in my head, whether it's been told to me or not, like people who have told me that they categorize me as a family member, like I will believe that and I will make myself at home and I will feel relaxed eventually to let my guard down and be diplomatic and be supportive and loving and kind. And I had, like, realistically, that is where I'm at. Like, I want so desperately to have safety, security, like a safe, non-hostile spot to be and a place to exist. And I want other people to have that. So it's hard to share my diagnosis or to share like what I've been through with somebody. Um, and then to have someone drop me like a hot rock anyway, like it almost makes me feel like, why would you bother? I'm trying really hard because I feel like I would like to. I love making new friends. I love having people in my life. I cannot picture me putting myself out on the limbs that I've put myself out on again. Like, I can't. I feel so badly hurt because I was told the relationships I was building and the people I was with, like, were bomb proof and that, there's nothing you can do to whatever. And it's, but the realization that that camaraderie and that elbow to elbow mentality was at the cost of like putting the bar so low and forgiving, like I hold people to the accountability standards that I have for myself. Like, that to me is what love is. Like, you decipher each other and you educate each other, and yeah, you cry and you do whatever, but you lift yourself up and you prove that you can make strides forward and not make the same mistakes. Um, so it's just hard because, again, like dealing with the fact that my standards for myself were based around fictional things, fictional safety nets that I was told would be available to me, and it was, you know, everybody loves you, and you have so many people who love you in your life, and they're always going to be there to catch you. Like, the fuck they will. Like, they're recovering from their own traumas that they're maybe willfully overlooking for the time being. Um, and, oh yeah, we'll always be there. We'll always be there to catch you. We'll always be there to support you and shoulder to cry on. And then all of a sudden, like, because I have believed that, and like it took so long for me to figure out how to express myself and how to unpack the emotional difficulties that I had been put through, have been put through, that the second I feel comfortable enough to identify them and then communicate to them to say, hey, I don't know if this is normal, can you talk me through this, or do you have a comparable experience? And then to have what I've shared with someone be weaponized against me, um, I so I'm stumbling my way through. Um, I'm really just I've been in therapy, talk therapy, since I was 4. I feel like I have so much self-awareness and so much insight, and I, I have had my demons with alcoholism and other, different things in my life that I'm not proud of, but I the trouble I have with talk therapy, and I know for a fact that I've said this in at least one other video, but the trouble I have with talk therapy is not dissimilar from what I feel is wrong with the public school system and the desensitization of like children's TV, um, the indoctrination of the American children and American females in particular to make sure, they know exactly what they're doing when they get preyed upon. Um, I I feel like you, through therapy, develop these really important tools to identify your feelings, and you are taught all these, the dialogue that you didn't have before, and you learn to look at things critically and logically. And unfortunately, like, the longer I live, the more I have gone through, like, especially the last 2 to 3 years, like, there is no, like, learning so much logic and having so much of your life centered around how to use logic and how to use emotional intelligence, and then being released into or trapped in a world that doesn't operate logically, um, doesn't care about your emotional intelligence, and people will take any boundaries you try and create or any requests that you have for how to be friends with them, and they'll say that's nice and then put it in the trash. Um, and the only thing that you can control in those situations is how much patience and how much love you're willing to give that person who has just injured you, and how graceful you're supposed to be. While you're supposed to be empathetic and understanding that they have their own shit they're working through, and that hurting you is what they saw as an expendable, acceptable way to handle that. I yeah, okay. I think I got my thought out. Um, I just want to know why. Like, that's my entire life, is I just really want to know why, and if I don't understand, like, that's my verbal tick when I get into a downward spiral, is either I don't feel good, or I don't understand, or I can't breathe. Like, I don't understand is the cruelest. I don't feel safe is the most common. But I don't. I'm just trying to keep my head down, and that's what I should have been taught to do better. Um, I made a mistake thinking that I was welcomed into people's lives who didn't have the capacity for me and only had energy for really shallow people, and I am not. I'm multidimensional and difficult, and part of what I have always struggled with, social media wise, with TikTok and YouTube. Like, I don't have a niche. I am just as much photography and nature videos and painting and yoga, and I am all those things equally. I am crafting, I am editing, I am fashion, I don't have a linear set of interests, and if you tell me to rein it in that regard, it's gonna be me being disingenuous. So I just would really like to start a process of some sort of pre-friendship survey of, like, how much can you handle, how much time, like, what type of hangout do you want to have? Like, I need really remarkably clear, deliberately isolated, how much time do you have, and how you're gonna be somebody I can talk to once a month or once every 3 months. And I'm really struggling with, like, if you haven't been to therapy, like, you might not be the person for me or the friend for me. Like, what have you specifically implemented to move through your shadow work and fight your demons? Or, like, I I would have to do so much work to walk myself back to become shallow enough to meet a new friend right now. Because I just don't want to drown anybody.